Shalom. First and foremost, I want to give all praises or glory and honor to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Rakah Kodash, the brothers and the elders and the apostles of Great Millstone. Shalom to the elect across the four corners of the earth. You understand? And the great multitude, the believers out there as well. This lesson I'll be talking about, the spirit and the flesh is at war. And I'll start off in the book of Galatians chapter 5 and verse 16. This I see then, walk in the spirit, and ye shall not fulfill the lust of the flesh. Right? So you have to walk in your spirit. And as I say, that's the only way that you could do the things and the will of Yahweh Hashem Yahweh Shai is by being in the spirit. Let me get in the book of John again. This is the book of John chapter 4 and verse 24. The Most High is a spirit, and they that worship him must worship him in spirit and in truth. Right? And that's what the Lord wants. The Lord wants, the true worshipers. Alright? Yahweh Hashem Yahweh Shai wants the true worshipers. And in order for you to worship the Lord, alright, sincerely, you have to walk in his spirit. You understand? And that is precept where it says such as worship him. Let's be with man. If that is in your apocrypha, right? I'm saying it wrong. That is precept it's the Father desires such to worship him. Alright, again, it's here. This is in the book of it's actually in the 23rd verse. Yeah. The 23rd verse, right? Jumping down to the 23rd verse, but the hour cometh, and now is, when the true worshippers shall worship the Father in spirit and in truth, for the Father seeketh such to worship him. Right? So that is actually the verse above that. And that's what the Lord is looking for. And you have to be in the spirit. You can't be in the flesh to accomplish this. Right? Because the flesh, if you walk in the flesh and not in the spirit, you're going to do the things that please you, that please this flesh. So let's go back in Galatians chapter 5 and verse 17. For the flesh lusted against the spirit, and the spirit lusted against the flesh, and these are contrary the one to the other, so that ye cannot do the things that ye would. That's right, so it's a fight. And when it says the flesh lusted against the spirit and the spirit lusted against the flesh, that don't mean that they have a desire for one another. What that's talking about is the flesh desiring to overthrow the spirit, to overcome the spirit, and the spirit desiring to overthrow and overcome the flesh. right? So they're both designed to conquer one another. So it's a war between your flesh and your spirit, right? The spirit want to do something, but the flesh want to do something else. So they are contrary to one another. That's what it's talking about. It ain't talking about the spirit desiring the flesh and the flesh desiring the spirit. They desire to conquer one another, right? The flesh wants to do something, but the spirit wants to do something else. You understand? That's why I say so that he cannot do the things that he would, right? Because it's a battle. You understand? The flesh and the spirit is at war. So you can't really do the things that you want to do because you understand we are in these chains of darkness. What do we want to do? We want to be 100% perfect. All right? But because of this flesh, we can obtain that. We cannot obtain that until Yahweh Shai comes back. Until the Lord comes back, that's when we're going to obtain that perfection. Right? That's when we get to defeat death and all that. You understand? So until that time comes, it's a fight. The 18th verse, but if ye be led of the Spirit, ye are not under the law. That's right, you're not under the law, you're under grace. It says, now the works of the flesh are manifest, which are these: idolatry, fornication, uncleanness, lasciviousness, idolatry, witchcraft, hatred, variance, emulations, wrath, strife, seditions, heresies, envyings, murders, drunkenness, revelings, and such like, of the which I told you before, as I have also told you in time past, that they which do such things shall not inherit the kingdom of the Most High. So the flesh can make you lose your crown. The flesh can make you lose your salvation. Right? The 22nd verse. But the fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, long-suffering, gentleness, goodness, faith, meekness, temperance. Against such there is no law. Right? And they that are Hamashiachs have crucified the flesh with the affections and lust. That's right. If we live in the Spirit, let us also walk in the Spirit. Let us not be desirous of vainglory, provoking one another, envying one another. And that's what people in the world do. Right? That's what people in the world do. For all others in the world, like it says in the book of John, the lust of the flesh, the lust of the eyes, and the pride of life. Right? That vainglory. That's what the people of the world do. That's the spirit of the world. That's not the spirit of Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushai. You understand? And like it says here in the 24th verse, and they that are Hamashiachs have crucified the flesh with the affections and lust. Because the scriptures speak about mortifying the deeds of the body in the book of Romans. And I'll get that soon. It says, if you walk in the flesh, ye shall die. But if ye mortify the deeds of the body, that is you crucifying. You understand? As a matter of fact, let me get it now. As I'm going into that. So I'll read over Galatians 5 and 24 one more time. Right? And then I'll get the Romans. So Galatians chapter 5 and verse 24. And they that are Hamashiachs have crucified the flesh with the affections and lust. So let me go in the book of Romans. Yeah, we're going to book of Romans, chapter 8 and verse 13. For if ye live after the flesh, ye shall die. But if ye through the Spirit do mortify the deeds of the body, ye shall live. Right, to mortify. You crucify the flesh. You put it to death. So let me go in. Let me look into the word mortify. Right.
Strong's G 2289, Thanatao.
Thanatao. Right. So wait, it says here, to put to death, to make to die, destroy, render, extinct. Right. You wipe it off completely. It says by death to be liberated from the bond of anything. Literally to be made dead in relation to something. So as you see how it linking up with what I bring out in Galatians, right? You crucify the flesh with the lust. So that is what it's saying here in the book of Romans 8 and 13. When it means to mortify the deeds of the body. You understand? You have a strict discipline and you fleeing from that from that lust. You're not going after your lust. And that's what the scriptures tell us. The scriptures tell us to go not after your lust. This thing playing the fool. Oh, eh? And you know, when you develop a certain level of discipline, you just actually feel better than a person who just constantly, going after the things what they want. They tend to feel heavy. They tend to feel tired, weighed down. Because why? They are a slave to the lust. So it's actually in the book of Ecclesiasticus, also known as Sirach, chapter 18 and verse 30. Right? It says, go not after thy lust, but refrain thyself from thy appetites. The scripture is saying to don't go after your lust, but to refrain yourself, right? To mortify it. And if you looking for strict discipline, this is what you have to do. Right? You want that strict discipline, and you have a Hashem, you have a Shai. You have to mortify the deeds of the body. You have to forsake your flesh. 2 Timothy chapter 2 and verse 22. Flee also youthful lust, but follow righteousness, faith, charity, peace with them that call on the Lord out of a pure heart. So you see, you're fleeing from youthful lust. Because what that's going to do, that's going to drag you into a hole that would be hard to come out of. All right? And it will try to pull you into deeper and deeper stuff. And because you in the flesh, these spirits, these left-hand spirits, these demons, could have an advantage over you. Because remember, you're in the flesh, you're not in the spirit, you're not having, the vision and the sight to discern that, hey, I'm doing too much, or I shouldn't do this. So you're not in the spirit, you don't have that spirit of discernment, and you're walking after your lust. That means that you're being blinded, and eventually, right, when you're in the flesh, it don't just stop there, right? It don't just stop there when you're in the flesh. It grows, right? That lust that you have, it grows. It wants something more intense, right? That's why the scriptures speak about, let me see if I can get it. Or not. Let me see. Let's be out, man. So hold on for a minute. This is the book of right. The book of Proverbs, right? Proverbs chapter 27 and verse 20. Hell and destruction are never full, so the eyes of man are never satisfied. And when you in the flesh, this is the state that you're gonna be in. You're never gonna be satisfied. All right. It's always a ladder to climb. You know, when you're going down that road with the flesh. That's why the Lord said to mortify it. Because if you live after the flesh, you're gonna die. All right. You're not going to walk in the ways of Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushai. You understand? You wouldn't want to fast. You wouldn't want to pray. You will feel like you're wasting your time. And these demons go play on your mind even more. Right? So understand what the scripture is saying. But let's go up. Let's go back to the book of Romans. Right? Let's go back in the book of Romans chapter 8. And let me bring out Romans chapter 8 and verse 5. For they that are after the flesh do mind the things of the flesh, but they that are after the Spirit, the things of the Spirit. Right? So if you're in the flesh, your mind is going to be on the carnal things. If you're in the Spirit, your mind is going to be on the spiritual things. The 6th verse, for to be carnally minded is death, but to be spiritually minded is life and peace. So to have a carnal mind is death, right? Because you cannot please the Lord. And it's going to go into it. Because the carnal mind is enmity against the Most High, for it is not subject to the law of the Most High, neither indeed can be. So then, they that are in the flesh cannot please the Most High, Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushai. So you see, if you're walking in the flesh, you cannot please the Lord. So you have to be in the Spirit. Right? And have a scripture say it is impossible to please the Lord without faith. Whereas the same thing applies with being in the Spirit. You can't please Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushai if you're not walking in the Spirit. As the precept I bring out earlier in John 4 and 24, Yahweh is a spirit, and they that worship him must worship him in spirit and in truth. Right? Because and going on to that verse, the scripture say the Father wants such You know, the true worshippers, the true worshippers, roughly paraphrasing, I can't remember the word for word, to worship him in spirit and in truth. Right? And I might do another lesson on how to please Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai. You understand? I done already said two precepts, right? This precept, I done quote 2 precepts. This precept where it say it is impossible without faith, it is impossible to please him. For he how it goes, without faith it is impossible to please him, and he that cometh to Yahweh must believe that he is, and that he is a reward of them that diligently seek him. Right? So faith is one thing that you need to please the Lord. Another thing here is being in the spirit. Right? Like it says here in Romans 8 and 9. Romans 8 and 8, sorry. So then, they that are in the flesh cannot please the Lord. Therefore, being in the spirit, that's what's going to make you do the things pleasing in the sight of the Lord. So, what I want to say, I will get to do a lesson on pleasing Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai. Right? And those two scriptures that are quoted and bring out is what I would bring into the lesson. Right? So that is just a little trailer to the next, lesson that I would do at the one Ratazah. Right? So let me just bring out this precept and we will close it out with this. 1 Peter chapter 2 and verse 11. Dearly beloved, I beseech you as strangers and pilgrims, abstain from fleshly lust, which war against the soul. So you see, it's warring against the soul. Both is contrary against the other. Right? The flesh desiring to overthrow the spirit, and the spirit desiring to overthrow the flesh. Right? It's warring against your soul, and your soul, it talks about, your consciousness, your way of thinking, and your mind. That is your soul, right? Because, like the last lesson I did about the heart, you understand? The scriptures say where your heart is, that's where your mind will be. Roughly paraphrasing. So, you have to be mindful of these things. You have to be mindful of, your way of thinking. You have to be mindful of your soul. Right? Your consciousness. And these things, because all these things is what the enemy does attack. And we must be able to see that and, use scriptures. All right? So with that, I want to give our praises or glory and honor to Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai, Ba'ashem Rakah Kodash. Double honor to the elders and the apostles of Great Millstone. Shalom to the elect. Shalom.